Hello, welcome to Movies with Martha. My name is Martha and I'm reviewing Citizen Kane. Movie shark, do 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 do, movie shark, do 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 do, movie shark. Citizen Kane has the reputation of being the greatest film ever made. So right away it's got a lot to live up to, right? So I knew this going into it. I'd never seen it before, so I had high expectations, basically. Now, Citizen Kane is about a business tycoon. As a young boy, he inherits a gold mine, basically. So his mother basically decides that he'd be better off if he grew up in the city. And he was raised by the bank. So, yeah, so he was raised by the bank until he was old enough to inherit this great fortune, basically the richest man alive or whatever. And he decides to buy a newspaper publishing company. And that's one thing he decides to do, and he decides to do all sorts of other things with his money. And the movie is based around this mystery, which in the opening scene, it's actually him on his deathbed, and he says one word, Rosebud, and he drops this snow globe and it crashes, etc. Rosebud. So the journalists for his newspaper are going on a quest to interview everyone, whoever knew him, to find out what or who Rosebud is and why it would be his dying word, and hoping that that word and whatever it means would tie together the story of his life. So this movie is the story of his life, Kane's life, from beginning to end, but the narrative is very interesting because it's told through the interviewing of these different people who played a part in his life and who knew him. So it's told from different perspectives and different snippets of his life, all kind of pieced together. I'm going to say that this movie was very intriguing, very thought-provoking, very interesting. I wanted to know what the answer to this Rosebud mystery was. And I mean, it's certainly not a light-hearted movie. It actually has a very Alfred Hitchcocky kind of flavor to it, very noir in the lighting and mood and all this stuff. And it's a surprise ending. It's the answer to this mystery, and it reveals this whole meaning to the entire movie, and it almost makes you want to go back and watch it again, just with this new knowledge, you know. Now, as for it being the greatest movie ever made, I would say that modern and general audiences probably wouldn't agree, simply because it's not as enjoyable as a lot of movies. It's not as, you know, but if you take into account the history of the movie, it was made in 1941, and supposedly if you watch 100 movies that were made before Citizen Kane and 100 movies that were made after Citizen Kane, you'd be able to see just how groundbreaking this movie was to the film industry in terms of cinematography, how sound was used in storytelling, camera angles, and even just the narrative and the story. It was written by Orson Welles, and he's the main actor as well. He's the guy who did the radio show War of the Worlds, you know, and all that stuff. So yeah, Citizen Kane is definitely worth watching. And it's thought-provoking and interesting, but don't go in expecting it to just blow you away like, wow, that's the best movie I've ever seen, I gotta get it on my shelf in my movie library and watch it over and over again, kind of thing. Unless you want to do the film student kind of homework to actually analyze and see why it's the greatest movie ever made. But yes, it was definitely worth watching.